Hello, my name is Angela Cox and I am the Mindset Mentor, and this is the Mindset Mentor Meets podcast. Now, my aim is to discover and share the secrets of success. You'll hear engaging and uplifting interviews with business leaders at the top of their game, all primed to deliver bucketfuls of value and inspiration. We'll bring practical tips, success strategies, and golden nuggets of motivation to help you unleash your absolute potential. Now, please do like, share, and leave a review if you love this podcast. It really does help others to find us. Thanks for listening, and let's jump in now and meet this week's fabulous guest. Hello and welcome to the podcast today. Now, I have the pleasure of being joined by what can only be described as a force of nature. She is the wonderful Carolyn Maloney, and Carolyn's role is the Head of Research Operations at University Hospital Leicester NHS Trust. I can't even imagine what Carolyn's life has been like during all of the COVID pandemic, alongside everything else that she does. I describe her as a force of nature because there is nothing that Carolyn can't do when she sets her mind to it. And I just absolutely love her. So I'm delighted that you're on the podcast today, Carolyn. How are you?
Thank you. Reeling from that introduction, but yeah,
It's
I'm good.
Totally
thank you.
True.
I'm very good. Thank you.
I can see that it looks like you're in your bedroom.
I'm in my home office.
Home office. Still working at home, or are you sort of doing the whole hybrid thing now?
Well, this week I'm actually on annual leave, but yes, I am doing hybrid, sort of 2 or 3 days in the office and the others at home. And the rest of the team are doing exactly that too, which is great.
How's everybody finding it? Getting back into that routine of being back in the office.
So initially we started introducing the concept of actually returning to the office back in March. And there was a lot of hesitation, a lot of anxiety, because we are essentially an administration function. We don't work clinically. And so we were lucky enough to be able to just go and work from home. Some of the team actually chose to stay in the office because it wasn't possible for them to work from home for whatever reason. And we started talking about it very openly. And there were a lot of anxieties from possible agoraphobic tendencies that had come to the fore to, I really can't wait to get back in, and everything in between. So we've done it very gently, very slowly, and we've suggested up to 50% one way or the other for people to choose what they want to do and how they want to do it. And that, I think, has probably helped.
Yeah, that choice is really important, isn't it? Rather than a sort of mandated, it must be this way or that way.
Yes, and I think because we've given them the control of it, I think it's a lot easier. And some people who haven't ever experienced anxiety in quite the same way were surprised at how they were feeling, and myself included. Been surprised on my anxieties about actually peopling. And people aren't that nice, actually, sometimes, So actually looking after each other, looking after the team. And at the hospital, we have this mantra, which has been started from the CEO and all the way down. And we just ask 2 questions, are you okay? Am I okay? And they are every single day across the whole of the organisation. And there is such a high focus on well-being. And I think it needs to remain, because it's the same staff that have done everything in clinical and non-clinical who will now be bringing those horrendous waiting lists down.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's the knock-on effect, isn't it? Yeah. I love those questions though. Are you okay? Am I okay? And they kind of come from that element of transactional analysis as well, in terms of us, believing I'm okay, you're okay, but let's check in. I like that a lot.
Yeah. And also not being afraid to probe a little bit, because we're all very good at saying, yeah, I'm fine. And actually you're not. And actually very gently saying, are you sure? Because the way I've witnessed you behave in a certain situation isn't the person I know. And just gently challenging, which can be difficult. And I've done mental health first aid, which has helped, but it's still, you just have to tread very carefully, actually. Very carefully.
That's exactly the phrase I was just thinking then, that treading carefully, but being curious and being interested. And I think for many of us that have been isolated for so long, that curiosity and interest in other people has been diminished over time because our worlds are so small. So actually making space for others is a challenge, and it's something that we've got to get used to again, isn't it?
Yes, I agree with that. But also, I think when you ask the question, you actually care about the answer. Because from a corporate speak, it's all very well, senior management have told me I've got to say, are you okay? Am I okay? And actually, it's very easy just to follow the corporate line. And I won't do that. I want to ask, if I ask you a question, I'm wanting to know the answer. And I would like it if you were honest about your feelings.
Yeah.
And so I hope that sort of culture within the office is, it feeds down. In the majority of cases, it feeds down.
Yeah, that role modelling all the way through. And, speaking of role modelling, I mean, that's just you in a nutshell, really. And this podcast is all about you. And one of the things, as you know, that we do on the pod is talk about your proudest moments. And it's something that many people find difficult to really kind of think about that and think about themselves for 5 minutes rather than everybody around them. So I'm going to ask you to share your top 3, and we'll dig into each one and see what that's meant for you and what you've learned from it. So let's go with the first one. I can't wait to hear what it is.
Okay, so yeah, you're right. It was hard, because when you actually start celebrating you taught from a very young age that actually you're conceited, and you should just be quiet. So my first and second were actually jostling for position, actually. But I've gone for essentially, and I've written them down because otherwise I shall forget, but where I am now in my life, my career, and feeling fabulous.
Oh, tell me about feeling fabulous. What does that mean?
Being okay in my skin, actually, accepting me for who I am, and learning every day. And it's not something that happens without a lot of repetitive practice, which you've taught me. And it is daily repetitive practice, and it's daily affirming that, okay, so you might have reacted in this particular way in the past, but that doesn't mean to say that you have to react in the same way again. You are great. You are, I don't tend to stand at the mirror and go, you know what, you're flipping hot today. But actually, one of the things that I learned from you, and we've worked together for several years now, is actually to focus in on the bits of me that I don't like, and tell those bits of me and my brain that actually they are amazing, because when you believe it, you will become it. And you can lie to yourself conscious, so your subconscious, and it believes what you're telling it.
Totally.
I mean, it doesn't work all the time, because sometimes, a woman of a certain age, you're hormonal, and, and life gets in the way, and you haven't got the energy, and it is hard work. But actually, yeah, I'm okay.
It's just amazing to hear it. It's so amazing, because there are so many women and men out there that are constantly fighting this battle with themselves. And as well as I do, and I'm in this kind of position at the moment of being a bit fed up with the constant efforts that it takes to keep yourself on that even keel. And there's so much information out there that sort of tells us that this idea of perfection is attainable, and this idea that, you can wake up one day and life will be everything that you want it to be. And I don't subscribe to that.
No.
I think it's life will be as good as it can be if you put in the daily grind. And sometimes it can get a bit, And I know at the moment you're studying really hard. You've got a really big job. You've got a lot going on. You're committed to your health and fitness, lots and lots of balls juggling. So tell me about how you get up every morning and make that decision to prioritize you in amongst all of this other stuff that you have going on.
Okay, well, that's really interesting, actually, because in the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've had a bit of an epiphany. And I've never really suffered with lack of motivation. As you said at the beginning in my introduction, if I put my mind to something, I will make sure that it happens. By fair means or foul, eventually I will engineer things, the universe, to make sure that, it doesn't always work, but if I put my mind to something, I will achieve it.
Yeah.
But actually, my motivation isn't my issue. My issue is the discipline to maintain the motivation. So when the motivation is no longer there, it's discipline.
Yeah.
And for years and years and years, I've struggled losing weight, and I'd lose half a stone, then I'd put it back on again. I'd go hell for leather at, the latest fad, and,
as we all do.
Oh my goodness me. And it's like I have all of those tools at my disposal. I just need to knuckle down and just do it. And actually, it's the consistency of applying the discipline and not giving myself the get out clause, because I am an absolute master at allowing myself to be kind. But actually, and I've heard it from 2 people now, you were one, and I think the other was, I can't remember the name of the other person in the podcast I was listening to. But actually, how will your behaviour today, in terms of your goals and achieving what you want to achieve, affect your future self? So if I decide that I can't be bothered to get on the spin class and bashed out a half an hour HIIT session, well, actually, that's not self-serving. I may feel tired. My legs might be shot because my personal trainers, beasted me the day before. But actually, getting that heart rate high enough to burn those pesky calories, to get rid of this pesky fat, and actually to get the svelte body that will go into the hob stress that's still sitting on the rail because it won't do up, and that is the only way to do it. I am the only person in control of that. Nobody else can do that for me.
Yeah.
And so it's waking up in the morning, and I have, well, as you know, I am super organized. I plan a lot. I don't write list upon list upon list, but I plan. And I'm getting a huge amount of satisfaction out of highlighting the stuff that I have planned and I have done. And, it feels great. It's blimmin' hard work, though. It is blimmin' hard work, but that is my focus. And actually, I lost focus through lockdown. And, I was so busy, as you say, so very busy, ridiculously so. And it was okay because I didn't need to focus on anything else. But actually, I was cross with myself because I'd wasted a year.
Oh, that's an interesting term.
I could have actually achieved some of my goals, but I decided that I couldn't be bothered to work hard enough because I was working too hard on other things. And it was actually a bit of a balance. So, but, it's always a balance. I have regular arguments with myself. And I am now not allowing myself to let myself off.
It is that balance, isn't it? Between, am I being kind to myself? And I always put that in inverted commas, i.e., am I making an excuse?
Yeah.
Or actually, when I look at my operating window today, what's in it? And is it viable for me to do something for me today? And some days we just don't have the capacity.
No.
And, on a day, I'm sure you've had many days during COVID, as head of research operations, my God, how much research has been going on, where your days have just been absolutely jam-packed and there hasn't been space for you. But on other days, there'll be days where we go as human beings, I can't be bothered, I'm tired, and I have got space for it, but I'm going to be kind to myself and sit on the sofa with a tub of ice cream. And it's that, isn't it? It's that dichotomy where we've got to say to ourselves, am I doing the best for me tomorrow, as you say? And I think it was Mr. Andy Cope that talked about that. Oh, he was on my podcast, actually. So that's probably why you've heard it. Because that's one of his big things from a positive psychology perspective.
Yeah,
So,
Mr. Happy.
yes. And you're Mrs. Fabulous. And to be able to hear you say that you feel fabulous, is it's breathtaking, really, because that for me is the ultimate. No matter what we still want to do with ourselves and what we want to achieve, that baseline of I'm bloody brilliant anyway, that's like job done. It's amazing. So yeah, shake your pom-poms there.
I think even when you don't feel amazing, you tell yourself you feel amazing,
yes,
because then you will believe that you do.
Totally on it. I love it. So what's number 2, dare I ask?
Okay, so during COVID, my part and my team's part, so this isn't me as an individual, this is my small part of Team UHL, but also Team Research UHL.
Tell me what UHL stands for.
University Hospitals of Leicester.
Of course it does.
So our achievements throughout COVID are unsurpassable. And I think some of the successes, it's a bit bittersweet, really, because the phenomenal number of patients that we recruited to COVID research is it's difficult because there were a lot of patients who were very poorly. And with all of those patients who were very poorly, we managed to get 95% above 95% of every single patient who touched UHL into a research study of some description.
Wow.
And we also looked at the whole process. I'm a bureaucrat, basically. I eat and breathe governance. Some people love me and some people don't. And it is what it is. And,
have you got the red tape, Carolyn? Is that you?
I've got the red pen. And, no, you're not doing it quite like that. I'll see what I can do. But you can't break the law, mate. So, however, there are things that we can do in order to facilitate getting research up and running much faster. And I think our record was 6 hours.
Wow.
And so we're now looking at that. But actually, one of the reasons we internationally recognized now for our achievements through COVID is just what we did to get there, how we got there. And we were asked to participate in a couple of Zoom calls. And I think I was described as a gladiatorial. Gladiatorial. In one of them by one of my favourite professors, and I wasn't sure what he meant, but actually he said,
"Did you Google it?"
So
the word.
I did, yeah, and I still didn't recognise it. And he said, "Well, this is why." And he was saying, "Well, all I said was we just rolled up our sleeves and got on with it."
Yeah,
and I think now we're looking at how we can get research open faster at UHL, and I'm sort of going to be having various conversations with people, because there's a regulation. It's not that easy. There's regulations, there's laws we've got to adhere to, etc. And fundamental to it all is patient safety.
Of course it is.
But I can remember having a conversation with somebody right in the centre of COVID who said, this individual needs to be able to administer this drug to this patient as part of the COVID response, but they don't have this one piece of paper. And I said, does the piece of paper mean that they don't know what they're doing? He said, well, no, it just enhances the fact that they'd have a refresher. I said, so it's not fundamental basic training? He said, no, absolutely not. It's just a piece of paper for a training course that they have to repeat every 3 years. I said, well, if this patient dies because they haven't been able to have this drug, and I'm saying, no, they've got to do their training course, that's just not sensible. It's just, just let them do the flipping administration of whatever this patient needs, and we'll deal with the fact that this person's, mandatory training for research has expired by, 6 weeks or whatever. Well, what have they been doing for the past 6 weeks? They've been flipping saving lives.
And it's the risk. It's the risk assessment, isn't it? In that moment,
yeah.
What does it mean for the patient? What's the risk of not doing it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That
And when you're
takes some
talking,
adaptability, though, for you.
Yeah, it does. But actually, I'm a pragmatist and I'm internationally recognised for my pragmatism and proportionality. And some people think that I'm some of the decisions I sometimes make are maybe not the ones that they would. And I know the rules and I know what's safe. And actually, the clinicians are the best placed people to look after their patients. And I'm not a clinician, I'm head of governance. So I know what the law says, and I also know what you've got to do in order to do what you're doing. But the other thing is, before we start a research study, normally we would do lots of checks and balances. And one of those checks and balances is funding. So is there enough money to pay for the research so that we're not taking money away from routine patient care? Is the indemnity there? Well, yes, the indemnity is there because, everything's indemnified up to the hilt, particularly with drug research. And has it had national approval? Well, Chris Whitty, one of my heroes, and JVT, I have to say, absolute heroes. In fact, I made myself a mug with JVT rocks and we love Whitty. And they set up with the National Institute for Health Research, urgent public health research scheme, essentially. And research studies that had to be absolute high priority for every single trust had to do these particular COVID research studies. Well, frankly, if the Department of Health and the government are going to say, we want you doing this research, it will have all of the appropriate indemnity, it will have all of and the MHRA as well, if they're saying this is safe. I absolutely trust my governance bodies and my regulatory bodies for their decision. And through COVID, everything was centralised, or to a certain extent, things were centralised, and then the local decisions were based on capacity. But all of the fundamental big decisions were actually made at the centre. So that was almost a bit of a cushion, as it were.
Yes.
Because if I happened to make the wrong decision, it wasn't as bad as it would have been in normal circumstances.
Yeah.
Not that any of my decisions would ever have any impact on patient care or patient safety. They wouldn't. So, it was a different environment. But if we could do it then, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute we could possibly approve a research study within 6 hours, every time. And in actual fact, the clinical areas wouldn't want us to do that anyway, because they need time to fit it into everything as well.
They do.
So it's
a balance, isn't it?
It is a huge balance. Yeah, always.
And the kind of the learnings now from this, and every business has experienced this, the burning platform has forced this different way of working, which wouldn't ever have even been considered pre-COVID.
No.
And yet these changes, fundamental changes, have been made in many organisations. And now it's looking at which parts of that do we take forward. And as you say, even from a finance perspective, many of the ways of working aren't sustainable long term. No. But there are some essences of them that can be embedded in the future ways of working. And pragmatism is a really great word, particularly in a regulatory area or a governance area. It's that kind of bringing that pragmatic element to it so that the patient's always first is a joy to hear.
Well, research by nature pushes boundaries and by nature answers questions that there are no answers to, or answers different questions. And patients do very well when they're on research studies. And, we were lucky in as much as we were able to maintain quite a few, the majority of our cancer studies, for example. But it's had a huge impact. But I am absolutely resolute in my determination that the learnings we've had from COVID will not be wasted. But what's interesting, actually, and from a human perspective, and I'm always quite interested in human behaviour and how people react. And those people who are usually resistant to change and who, oh no, we can't possibly do that. But what about, what if? That flipping what if. Well, yeah, but what if it doesn't?
Yes.
And, it's a bit like that analogy. Yeah, but what if it goes wrong? Yeah, but
what if I fall? But what if you fly?
What if I fall? What if I fly? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what's the worst thing that could happen if you actually get the decision wrong? Well, the worst thing that can happen is you actually learn something.
Yes.
And actually you can use that moving forward to the next occasion. But those people who are typically, no, I'm not doing it because it's change, were the people who said, right, okay, what do we need to do?
Brilliant.
And the people who were, right, okay, yeah, I love change. What do we need to do? But, are we quite sure? So it's
almost too much freedom.
Yeah, which itself was scary. So yeah, we're not going back to 100% pre-COVID.
And you talk about this being a team effort, and I know it absolutely is, but
yeah,
this element of, I remember talking to you in those early days of COVID, and you were working ridiculous number of hours with so much pressure in terms of adapting to this change. So the personal element that you brought to it was enormous.
Yeah, and there were times right at the beginning where I wasn't sure where I was going to get the resilience that I needed to see me through. And yes, I was working ridiculous hours, but then so was everybody else. And there wasn't a choice. And my COVID journey started 2 weeks before anybody else because my husband went down with it.
Yeah.
And so I was quarantined. So I was trying to get all of my team working from home, evacuated from the hospital building, as it were, working from home. We didn't have any systems set up, properly. Not everybody had the facilities at home that they needed. Not all of us have even laptops, let alone a camera or a microphone. And it's right, what do we need to do? And can you please organise it? Because I'm trying to do this with one hand behind my back and trying to sort out my own functionality.
And being a nurse.
Well,
how did you find that?
No, I just plied in with adequate jelly. Was it wine gums, squash, and coffee? And he was fine.
Left by the door.
And the neighbours would post wine gums through the letterbox. And paracetamol. Yeah, so.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. But that's the other thing actually about COVID is the community. I live on a fantastic road, and the community, we got a WhatsApp group and we were helping each other. And when I was then allowed out, doing each other's shopping, and the community element of that has been phenomenal. And parts of that have stayed as well.
It's really brought connectivity between people. I just love that. So another massive pom-pom moment there, and definitely one to be proud of. So we've had You're Fabulous. We've had the amazing work that you've done at University Hospital Leicester. What else have you got on the list?
So this one was quite hard because I could have gone, anywhere in my 55 years. But I've decided that actually getting onto and taking the steps to apply for and be successful in achieving acceptance onto my level 7 apprenticeship masters in leadership and management.
Yes! I'm like shaking my pom-poms for you.
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest pom-pom was actually, so I left school with apparently no chance of doing anything with my life because I didn't apply myself. In fact, I hated school, absolutely hated it. And I started to achieve when I left school. But as a result, I didn't go to university. I got a grade D O-level, I think, was my highest achievement in academic studies at school. And that was in music. And I only achieved a D because I got a third of that because I'd passed grade 5 theory with a distinction. So it was kind of, it's like, so the clarinet and the piano came in very handy. But yeah, I hated school. And in fact, I don't have very many friends from school at all. And so went on to do hotel reception, City and Guilds in hotel reception. Couldn't get a job because I didn't have any experience. Anyway, so that old chestnut. And so I ended up becoming a florist, and bought my own business and stuff, and still no formal education whatsoever. And everything I'd learned, I did it myself.
Yeah.
So it was only when I arrived in the NHS in 2003, and that was by accident as well. And
As these things always are.
Yeah, and that was through a temping agency. And again, all of my academics, all my administration skills were self-taught, except no formal qualifications at all. So I went to uni and did a research modules thing in 2006, and then I went and did.
You chose to do that?
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
yeah.
Carolyn.
It was 30 endpoints, and it was part of my PDP as part of my role. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So, and it was at Essex University, and it was, I mean, I passed. I can't remember. Well, no, I can remember. I can remember bits of it, but yeah. And then I did a PG dip in research ethics, because I thought that I needed to do something to achieve more senior posts within the NHS. In actual fact, I didn't. And actually, that's total rubbish. But somebody suggested that, so essentially, I hadn't been to uni properly at all, ever. And then somebody I have quite a lot of time and respect for suggested that I did a degree in leadership and management. And I sort of looked at it and said, what? So, well, I think you probably really benefit from it. So, okay, I'll have a look. So there was I looking at the level 6 apprenticeship, because the level 7 apprenticeship requires an overnight stay in an outward bounds. And I hate that sort of thing. I will avoid it like the plague. I won't go to things that have charades and, standing up in front of people, making yourself look stupid. No, it's not my, and I hate role play. Oh my God.
Me too.
Hate it. And so this weekend away with people on my course, as part of the course, was like, no, not doing it. And so my colleague turned around, he's just looked at me and he said, have a word. Oh, okay, yeah, it's just a bit ridiculous. So just suck it up. Just, do what you tell other people to do. Just suck it up and get on with it. Yeah, okay. So I enrolled, and I was accepted. So now I started in October, fitting it in with a very busy more than full-time job is tough. And my organisational skills come in incredibly handy. But we were talking before about my ability to procrastinate has increased as well. And it's kind of, I never thought that my skirting boards and my ironing board would be more attractive than writing an essay on risk management, but they are.
I can see why.
Yeah. Well, yeah. However, the journey so far has been amazing. I am enjoying learning more about the aspects of leadership and management that I didn't know. And by no means do I know all there is, but I do know more than I thought I did.
Brilliant.
So, this girl who won't amount to much when you left school, if you applied yourself, you'd do far better. Yeah, but actually, I don't want to apply myself because I'm bored. I don't want to do what you want me to do because I'm not interested. And actually, I've never lost that. I've still got that. If you don't interest me, I'm off. Get bored very easily. So, yes, I'm actually a proper student doing a proper MSc in a proper university.
And by probably this time next year, you will have that boxed off and you'll have achieved it.
Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yes. Well, I'm currently halfway through my 4th assignment, which is amazing. But the anxiety, oh my goodness, the anxiety when I submitted my first essay, because I don't know how people want me to write.
Yeah, you're waiting for the big crosses.
A friend of mine said, you write really well. I said, do I? Oh, okay. She said, well, yeah, you do. Has nobody ever told you? I said, well, no. And they, well, you do. And so that I obviously wrote appropriately. And I always thought to myself, I'm not a strategist. I don't do strategy. I'm operations. But actually, no, I do have
No, you're a
strategic
big
brain.
thinker.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but the anxiety of getting the first marks for my first assignment were incredible. And I hadn't realised how wound up I was getting. And I was so emotional when I opened the email. I burst into tears and I was like...
Because you got a distinction, didn't you, in the first one?
I got a distinction for part of it and a credit for the other part of it. So good. Overall, it was a merit. Yeah, a merit mark. And I'm like, what? No, they must have marked it wrong. But it was amazing. So, and I'm waiting now for so I got a pass for my second one because I didn't reference the appendices properly.
Oh, bloody references.
Yeah, honestly. Absolutely. And it was the appendices, for Christ's sake. And I'm like, okay, so lessons learned. So that would have been a merit as well. But it wasn't, it was a high pass. So it is what it is. And then I passed. I don't care.
Exactly that. No one's going to ask you what the score was.
No, absolutely. And then I'm just waiting for my mark for workforce planning. And again, the experiences from COVID and everything just throw everything in the textbook out the window. So all textbooks are going to have to be rewritten, just like policies and procedures. Yeah. So
the whole world has changed.
Absolutely.
It's interesting here you're talking about the writing, because one of the challenges I have, as you know, I'm doing the same sorts of things, and all my time through King's, I would get feedback that I would write in too simplistic a way, and I needed to write in a more academic way, which goes massively against my values, because I'm all about accessibility, making the complex simple. And so when I signed up for the doctoral study, I said, right, this is the way I'm going to write. And is it going to be accepted? Because I don't want this feedback all the way through that says I need to be more academic. And they said, oh, no, it'd be fine because you're doing a professional doctoral study as opposed to an academic PhD. It's all good. So I was like, thank God for that. Because I find that hugely frustrating.
Yeah, you see, I've recently, over the past 12 to 18 months, I've been learning more about writing papers for the board, etc. And I'm a really good waffler, and I've had some really good mentoring from two people within the organisation, and basically said, don't assume knowledge. So don't assume that people know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because most people don't. Somebody recently described my knowledge of research governance as encyclopedic. And I know it, so I expect everybody else to know it.
Yes, it's so true that.
And, you said, well, what do you mean I need to go into? But this is really ABC basic, because yes, but that's how it needs to be. But it needs to be ABC basic, appropriately referenced, and succinct.
Yes. That's where Grammarly comes in, you see. It takes a sentence that's 10 times longer than it needs to be, and it goes, how about you do it like this? I go,
So my husband's recently introduced me to Grammarly. I've not used it yet, but actually when you're struggling to find 3,000 words anyway, and it reduces by about 500, it's not going to help. So writing board papers and actually writing SOPs. So SOPs, I've been filling out SOPs without thinking. They bore me to death, but
I know
I can churn them out, and they speak to people because they can understand how what they're supposed to be doing, and so I write those. But writing an SOP and writing an academic paper is very different. But the thing I've learned very quickly is, if you make a statement, you need to back it up with evidence.
Yes, love it.
And you can't use the evidence from the Sun newspaper. You have to use the evidence from, appropriate academic sources or trusted sources, shall we say.
Primary sources. We love those.
And speaking in the third person rather than the first person. And that's quite hard as well. And rather than stating something as fact because it is, you have to say, well, anecdotally, it might be that so-and-so.
The wonderful joys of critical thinking. Oh, do you know
Indeed.
what you've covered today in a nutshell is basically your baseline is I am enough.
Yep.
As I am. You've got this essence of being able to adapt to changing circumstances and really lean into uncertainty and find your way through that. And then this real kind of commitment to continuous improvement and learning. So, from a human perspective, that's all anyone could ever ask of anybody. And this is why I describe you as a force of nature.
Thank you.
And so I can't wait to hear then what you believe the secret to success is.
And you were going to ask me this, so I've given this some thought, and I was talking to my husband about it earlier in the week, and he said, well, the first job you got in the NHS, you blagged it. No, I didn't blag it, but actually being in the right place at the right time is part of it, but actually it's much deeper than that. It's actually recognizing opportunities that are presented to you and actually being brave enough to jump at it. And not be too worried about what happens if it doesn't work, because if it doesn't work, then you haven't lost anything, but you might have lost something if you don't try. A friend of mine is applying for a job. Oh, I don't know if I want it. I don't know if, I said, look, you give yourself opportunity. If you apply for the job and you get interviewed, then you give yourself the opportunity. If you don't apply for the job and you won't get an interview, so therefore you don't have the opportunity in the first place. And what have you got to lose? And
so what you're talking about, it's the courage to create and take the opportunities, but there's an essence of vulnerability in there as well. So we're into Brené Brown territory.
Oh yeah. One of my heroes.
Love.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And actually that's something else. I mean, recently, and this is only recent years, and I think it's since I did the first Me Treat with you 3 years ago, I think it was now. And it's actually about, I used to find it really hard to be honest with people around me about how I'm feeling about, and some people won't ever know how I truly feel because I don't trust them with my feelings.
Yep, trust is important.
Very much so. But recognizing as a leader, recognizing that actually you have vulnerabilities and accepting your vulnerabilities and letting other people know that you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Actually they feel safer with you. So it's scary. It's scary to do, but it works. So secrets to success, being brave.
Oh, I love it. And I just love that sentence that you've just said about your vulnerability allows other people to feel safer with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it does.
Amazing. Do you know what? I feel like I've been talking to a friend for the last half an hour, 40 minutes or so. It's just such an easy conversation. You really are a spectacular woman, a spectacular leader, and an amazing friend. So thank you for being so very open and for sharing your pom-poms with us. What's the rest of the day got in store for you today?
Second Paw Patrol. So we walk a neighbour's 2 dogs on occasion to help them. They're working.
Yeah.
So whilst I'm working from home, I can go out and have half an hour walk. But sometimes it's like before 7 o'clock in the morning. That's a bit rude. But when you're on holiday. But actually it's great because it gets the steps in early.
Yeah.
So another Paw Patrol, and we call it Paw Patrol because that's what we do.
Well.
And part 2 of risk management essay.
Oh, the joy. You were holding up a textbook earlier and I was just like, really?
Risk culture and risk appetite. Which is actually quite hard from a pragmatist point of view.
Oh my God, yes.
Let's just do it anyway. Let's see what's the worst going to happen.
And now that I know that you're an expert in research, having to go through this at the moment, and it's killing me, the boredom of it, I'm just going to be phoning you up going, come on, help me sort my research project out.
Well, if you're doing it in the NHS, I can help you, but I can't help you for research methodologies and all of that sort of thing.
Shame.
Yeah, sorry, you're on your own with that, love.
Oh, Carolyn, it's been a joy. Thank you for being so open and honest. And yeah, just good luck with the rest of the masters. We'll be in touch as we always are. And thank you for sharing.
Thank you. It's been a joy.
I do hope that you enjoyed listening to the Mindset Mentor Meets podcast. If you did, be sure to check out the show notes to access all of those important links. For more about me, visit my website at www.angela-cox.co.uk. Now, I'd really love it if you could subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode, and do leave us a 5-star review because it really helps us to get noticed. Bye for now. I do hope that you'll tune in next week and take good care.